All right, welcome to episode 75 of the At Bad podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news, as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez, joined by my co-host Miles Porter. It's the OG crew tonight. The Gabe couldn't make it tonight, so it's the original duo. How we doing, Miles? How we doing today?
Hey, doing good. I mean, this Craig Council thing is crazy. A lot of my current teammates have been voicing their opinions to me about how they feel because my team is based out of Milwaukee. So
Mhm.
I play with a lot of Brewers fans, man, and they ain't happy. And I'm hearing a lot of it.
Oh my, yeah, I'm not surprised, and you know what, like we'll lead off. We're going to lead off with Craig Counsell, but just to kind of give a little rundown of what we're going to be talking about today is just nothing too crazy, really. Just all the news that's been going on in the last week. Obviously, we're in the full off season swing. Nothing dramatic has happened besides the managerial moves. We'll talk
Yeah,
Craig Counsell's press conference. Talk a little Shohei just because I feel like every day there's something new on Shohei Ohtani, or just not even something new, but just rumors that keep happening. They keep coming up. Not much with the White Sox in the last week or so. We talked, we talked to Gabe last week about the coaching staff, Tim Anderson's not coming back next year. But we'll definitely get into MLB Managers of the Year, Rookies of the Year, and Cy Young, which literally was just awarded like an hour ago. So we'll talk all things award. But yeah, we'll lead off with the Cubs and Craig Counsell because the press conference was on Monday. And dude, you're right. I mean, legit, like the amount of haters coming out is crazy to me because like Brewers fans and Sox fans like saying how like for example like Ozzy's always gonna speak his mind as again, and he's a funny guy, and he's been there, done that. So like if anyone's got if anyone has more of a reason to say what he has to say, it's him. So he did ended up he was the main one from like in the last week or so that said it's not really an upgrade from David Ross. And I mean I fully disagree with that because I just don't see no, and like I said this last week too, like no disrespect to David Ross, but he was only in the job for a few years. So you're gonna give me a guy has been there for 9 years, dealt with a team that doesn't spend a lot of money, um, and did what he did with a small market team. Like I just don't understand how that's not an upgrade. But like I said, I've heard that from multiple people, not just former players or former managers, just from fans all over, especially Sox fans, of course. Like they love to give it to Cubs fans, and I'm like, man, come on, like I just don't get how you can hate. Like, but it's always gonna happen, especially in a bigger market like Chicago. Like, but anyway, so the press conference in itself, it was great to hear him say certain things like it's good to be a Cub now. It's and he put on the jersey, he said it felt good. Like just seeing him happy, like he just seems like genuinely happy. And yeah, it was. I mean, I will say too that I was gonna open with this was the fact that when that press conference dropped on YouTube, bro, I watched that like the Super Bowl. I had my snacks out. I had I just had like what I'm saying. I was like 44 minutes long. I'm gonna sit down, enjoy this 44-minute press conference. I was like, I
yes,
had to. It
sir.
was it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. But what did you think, Miles? What were your thoughts on just the press conference itself and just like the new Cubs manager, man?
Very excited, and I like what you said earlier that he looks very happy. He
Mhm.
seems very energized about it, and I feel like I've seen a lot of managers get introduced. As we've seen over the years, we've seen guys step in. The optimistic energy that he's bringing to this organization is really cool. It's really cool. I mean, the entire time it felt like he was smiling from ear to ear. And then you just see the management on his right and his left was looking at him so proud. Um, yeah, this ball club is going in a very good direction. Yeah, and like I said, the last episode, this isn't any sort of disrespect towards David Ross in any sort of way. And I think Jed said it best, where it's like if you have an opportunity to bring someone on like this, you don't want to pass it up. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of David Ross. It's just part of the business, and just part of winning and putting your team in the best position possible. That was never personal. I never got those feelings, and I'm excited for it. And I think Craig Counsell is going to be very appealing to specific free agents during this time. So I think Cubs fans have a lot to look forward to going into 2024.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we'll definitely talk about that. I think some of the things too that I like that or that sorry that he said that I kind of remembered was just the fact that he didn't and this wasn't at the press conference. I believe this was like an interview after the press conference, but he did talk about how he wasn't ready for the type of backlash that he got from Milwaukee. Like he wasn't ready for that. He didn't anticipate that. And I think he even said that like in the future, I'm sure they'll like he hopes that they look back at the years that he was there as as successful and all that, which I'm sure they will. But it's probably just people have said that it feels like almost or compared it to like Aaron Rodgers leaving the Packers. It's that big of a deal to Milwaukee, so which understandably
A
so.
fresh
It
one,
is,
very fresh
yeah,
one.
exactly, yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, I mean, and also, like I said last week, plenty of people have thrown around the idea of David Ross going to Milwaukee, not a possibility anymore because they got Pat Murphy, but they were saying, oh, what if he went there? Like the type of drama, it would be wild. But now the Brewers have their manager, but yeah, it just to kind of transition into the what I was saying with Ohtani is yeah, I think that's one of the main things some people have been talking about because some people like I said, the negative comments that people have made obviously always stick with you when you see online, like those things always stick. But regardless, to give you something to talk about. So when people were talking about Craig Counsell and they're like, oh, like he only came here for the money, like there's no other reason why he came here, proximity to Chicago, like his family, whatever, like that those people are saying that, but there's just no way to like the way that he talks about winning, the way that he's managed the Brewers, the way that he's uh handled himself his whole career. There's no way you come here and you're okay with mediocre baseball or something, right? Like you come here to win, like and also not to mention that people are like oh the real moves are what the Cubs do with their roster, and you're right. Nobody's saying that nobody in their nobody in their right mind is saying that Craig Counsell is gonna, come in and with this roster right now is gonna win the World Series. Of course not. We know you say it all the
Right.
time about we need some pitching additions. We need this and that. I always say too. We definitely need a bat or two. Now that Bellinger, it just doesn't really look like he's gonna come back. Who knows on that? But yeah, I mean, there's just no way that obviously the roster is the big part, and we're gonna have to see what the Cubs do. But when it comes to Ohtani, that's one of the things that like I said in the last couple of weeks, I feel like every day there's a new rumor, there's like a new player, and I will say though that the Cubs have gotten the most traction. I feel like besides the Dodgers, besides the Mets and all that, because they've talked about the Rangers, talked about the Mariners, but the Cubs have moved up in Vegas. I believe that they went from like plus 2,500 to like a plus 650 favorite now to land Ohtani behind just the Dodgers. Yeah. So I mean you can only read into those things so much, but uh, how optimistic are you now that like he might come here? Because I mean I'm definitely optimistic because the Cubs have a lot to offer. I always think to myself that like if we would have made the playoffs this season, if the Cubs would have made the playoffs this season, that that would have helped the case a lot more because he could have seen playoff baseball like on
Yeah.
TV or whatever, and just kind of gotten a little more
Yeah.
of a taste.
Yeah.
But also you could also sell it to the fact that hey, look, we were this close, and we need a couple more guys, including yourself, and you could bring us to that next thing. But how optimistic has it changed in the last few weeks, or do you kind of see it the same where like you hope it happens, but Dodgers are probably still the favorite regardless, right?
Yeah, I definitely think the Dodgers are still the favorite, but definitely more optimistic than I was beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when we look at his buddy Seiya Suzuki over here, who's I wouldn't doubt has probably been in his ear about coming over here,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even playing under Joe Madden a little bit. I wonder what maybe what Joe was saying about Wrigley and playing in Chicago. So I think I think there's always that possibility for him coming here, and I was thinking about this earlier, where even if he didn't, that's okay too, because we're obviously going to give up a lot financially to bring him over here, which in the long term is definitely going to be worthwhile if
Hmm.
he stays healthy. Um, but I would not be surprised if he stays in California, if he just stays in LA specifically. I could 100% see him going to the Dodgers. But I like our odds too. But I'm also trying not to get myself too excited, so I don't let myself down.
Yeah, dude, 100%. But it's just so hard, like when there's no baseball, like to think like even I'll just be watching a Bulls game
Uh,
and I'm like, damn, how crazy would it be, if they got Otani? Like it would just shift everything. Like he would be the
yeah,
center. Like not to take anything away from Bedard because he's probably one of the top things that people are top people they're talking about in the city right now, Chicago. But if Otani comes here, it's game over. Like that would be crazy. But yeah,
dude.
I'm right there with you, man. Like I'm cautiously optimistic because you don't want to there's been
Yes,
plenty of free agencies in the last decade or so where you're like, whether it be Bryce Harper, that I definitely was hoping he'd come here. Um, hell, even I mean, just going back to like LeBron, dude, like just that was one of the biggest letdowns for me as a kid. Like just being like, man, I really hope that he comes to Chicago and all that, and then then obviously in the decision he says, "I'm gonna take my talents to South Beach," and I was
I
like, "Oh
was just
my
watching that the other
god."
day too, thinking about how crazy that moment
Yeah,
was.
I know, right? It like legit something out of a movie. Like it's funny
Yeah.
because back then that people still were like really he has to do all this, but like I feel like compared to now, nobody really batted an eye. But now looking back at it, like it was pretty ridiculous.
Oh,
like doing the
100%.
whole
I'm like, this is
decision show,
outrageous. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like doing the whole decision show just to announce, where you're going is hilarious to me. But like and to be fair, like a guy like Otani could do something like that where like he goes somewhere and announces he
Easy.
won't, but like he could easily like be in Japan and like
Yeah.
have like the Tokyo Dome reserved to like announce where he's going. But we're we're gonna be all ready for that. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that you said it too, where like it's gonna be worth it once no matter how much money you spend on this guy is going to be worth it. And I keep seeing tweets as well, people talking about like, man, just to think about the market in Japan, like the fact that the Cubs are going to make a crap ton of money just from the country of Japan watching the games. Not to mention the amount of jerseys being sold. Um,
Yeah.
and that's not even counting like just the Wrigley revenue. So like it's just limitless. Even if you bought or even if you paid 500 mil for this guy. Like I saw one guy talking about not like I'm math is not my forte, but like the dude was talking about how like you spend 500 mil on him, you most likely get all that money, or sorry, you most likely get half of that back by the first year because of everything put together, like the revenue and the Japanese market and all that. And it's one of those things too where like I was even telling one of my buddies that the fact that like the market in Japan is so big because people literally stay up to watch these games. Like they don't DVR them, they don't nothing. They stay up. It's like 4 or 5 a.m. and they're watching these LA Angels games, and it's awesome just to see like that reaction and that would be even really badass to get just Japanese Cubs fans and the
Oh my
Cubs have
gosh, it'd be
yeah,
awesome.
exactly, and the Cubs have garnered plenty over the years. When they had Fukudome,
Yeah.
and even with
Yeah.
Yu Darvish. And Yu Darvish has been one of
Mhm.
the guys that helped get Seiya Suzuki here, and there's been not
Yeah.
really not credited. I wouldn't say credited sources or trustworthy, I guess you could say, but there have been people
Mhm.
saying how like Yu Darvish has sold Otani on Chicago on the fans and all that, and so so that he does like it. So apparently he does like it, but again, you can only get yourself so happy there, but or so
Dude, Wrigley's
optimistic.
gonna be imagine.
Exactly. I know that's what I'm saying,
That's gonna
man.
be
Like,
that's the most lit stadium in baseball. Cubs fans at their peak.
mm-hmm.
Got
Ain't nothing like it, bro.
good luck to the visiting team. 2016 was a move.
Dude, seriously. And then that's the thing, like, too, is that I think I heard too that they had like a VR or they have a VR presentation for Otani to like show him what it's like to when the crowd's roaring and like in like it like puts him in the middle of the field with the crowd roaring, like postseason type feel. Like
I
it's
want that. I
hilarious.
want to experience that. I want to put it
Yeah,
on and just
I know, right? Yeah. I know. So it's I'm like, man, you really, really do have to pull out all the stops for this guy.
yeah.
And I don't believe he's like, I mean, as far as we know, traveled to different cities to get courted yet, but I'm sure it's gonna happen sometime soon. And I can't wait. I mean, it's probably, and that's the thing too, is like the cautiously optimistic also has to do with the timeline because I don't think he's gonna pick anywhere until like January. I don't see him picking
Right.
in like it would be. I'm sure. Like I always think about that too as a free agent. Like I feel like it'd be nice to just pick in November and just chill in this, and get acclimated to everything. But I understand that this is a giant decision because also when it comes to Ohtani too, besides a $500 million deal for 10 years or whatever, the people have said as well that just because he's not pitching next year, that a lot of teams might be in on it that usually wouldn't have been in on them, like a Texas, for example. Like they've spent a lot of money, so I'm sure they're not obviously out there trying to spend 500 million, but maybe like 3 years, I don't know, like 3 years, 250, or I don't know, just something ridiculous for because
Right.
basically people think it's going to be like an annual value deal. Do you see it that going that way? Like, do you see it maybe teams like what do you see that more likely, or do you think that teams will still try to give him that, or that he will for sure get that 8, 10 year deal?
Yeah, I think it depends on the organization. I think some of
Mm-hmm.
these teams kind of strategize a little bit different. I think the Rangers are a good example of that, where I could definitely see them giving him a shorter term deal, but with an annual salary of something outrageous. So yeah, I think it depends on the organization. So many of these ball clubs work so differently. If even if I look at a team like the Yankees, I could see them still giving him 500 million plus, regardless if he wasn't pitching until 2026. I could still
Mm-hmm.
see them throwing all that money at him because that's what the Yankees do. They have that money. That's a team that is desperately looking, trying, they're looking for ways to improve and pointing the finger at that John Carlos Stanton, whatever. Different story for another day, right? But it's an organization that I could see them doing that, and I could see other organizations that strategize a little bit differently, even like the Cubs specifically. Um, a lot of the criticisms that I hear about the Cubs, and I guess maybe a little bit me too as well, but not as much since we did sign Dansby, is that we are a large market team with a small market mentality. Which I guess that's just the Ricketts and Hoyer just kind of seeing how the league shapes throughout the years, seeing how certain players perform from a distance, and so yeah, I can see either one. I can see either one for him. And really, I wouldn't be surprised if he were to get a shorter term contract with a
Mm-hmm.
pretty large annual salary. I would not be surprised by that at all because I think the pitching does play into that more significantly than people do realize.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also you don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back as a pitcher. I mean, this is his second Tommy John.
Yeah.
It's Ohtani. He's a robot, so like realistically, he's going to come back and be fine. But like you also can never be too sure. So it's also fascinating because you do kind of think about, oh, maybe he goes to Arizona, like I don't know, someplace like that, like just for a couple of years. But then also he's kind of already dealt with the smaller market thing with Anaheim and all that. I think he does want to go full on blockbuster and go somewhere to a bigger
Yeah.
market. But people have said that he's enticed with Texas, he's enticed with Atlanta. Not that those are small markets, but smaller than Chicago. So like that would be somewhere. I mean, imagine. I mean, him going to the Braves would just the team's already unfair. Now imagine Ohtani on them, like
That's
Ohtani on
Thanos
the
with the Infinity Gauntlet.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm like, man, no way. Like if he were to go to the Braves, but anyways, but moving on to the rest of the league, you know what? You brought actually something real quick, and we have to say too much on it, but you did mention the Giancarlo Stanton, which would actually I forgot. I forgot about the situation because it happened a few days ago, but I've already like had conversation and stuff about it, so I kind of just I've been over it already. But what were your thoughts on it initially? I mean, this is Brian Cashman, the GM of the Yankees, saying, talking about how he's basically said, quote, he's going to wind up getting hurt again, more likely than not, because it seems to be part of his game. Now, plenty of people are complaining about this, saying like, it's messed up that he said that, and all this stuff. But then there's also a camp of fans that are saying, hey, they're being transparent. He's just being honest. And a lot of fans say it every year too. For the record, like we say it sometimes on here, like, or I know I for sure have said it, but I'll be like, hey, Stan's gonna get hurt every year. It's just the way it is. Like unfortunately, like he just gets injured every year. Like he doesn't miss when it comes to his injuries. It literally every year he gets hurt. So it sucks, and you obviously hope he never does, but it's just the way it is. And people were like, just outraged by his comments. But I also think it has to do with Brian Cashman just kind of having enough. He is so
Yeah,
tired of the media. He is tired of what's been going on and like how long that the Yankees haven't been winning and all that. Understandably so. They obviously it's been they went 2010 to 2020. That was the only decade they didn't make the World Series. So yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts as a baseball player yourself? Like your GM talking about you like that if you got injured. Like I know I'm sure it's different if you're a player, but what were your thoughts overall on his comments?
from a player standpoint, if I heard my
Mm-hmm.
coach or GM air that out about me, it wouldn't feel good, man, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not that he's wrong in that sense, but it's just like, okay, well, clearly you don't have any faith in me when it comes. We're at the point where you've kind of given up on me.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't feel good. We all know Giancarlo Stanton isn't trying to get hurt every
Mm-hmm.
year, and dude, it sucks not being able to play. It sucks. I hyperextended my wrist this year, and I didn't play 2 games, and I couldn't sleep at night. I can only imagine what is going through Giancarlo Stanton's head right now. Because you're already aware of what's going on. Like more than anyone because you're living with it. This is you that they're talking about. You're the topic, but you're also physically going through it. Cashman isn't wrong. He's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It is very likely for Stanton to get hurt because that has been the case. Um, I don't know. I don't think you need to air it out like that the way you do, the way that Cashman did. But here we are. I think, like you said, Cashman is frustrated. He not only heard it from the media, he's been hearing it from the fans this year, and the constant Yankee slander and people pointing at Boone and the Josh Donaldson trade and everything, and just all the moves that they're just kind of just pointing at him for in terms of making mistakes. Yeah, he's probably pissed off. You're in a pretty tough market to not play well, and quite frankly, you're the GM of the toughest team to be the GM for in a city with very very high expectations. Those expectations aren't going to go anywhere, and I think rightfully so. Yankees fans are pissed. If I'm a Yankees fan, I'm like, yo, what was that this year? Um, yeah, I get it. I think there are different ways that we can word things for sure. A part of his game. I don't. So I don't know, man. If we're gonna talk about his game, we're gonna talk about him playing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a part of his game means to me. You're saying that like him being injured is I don't know. I don't know. Yes, he tends to get injured a lot. Maybe it's something that you can expect and prepare for. His game is his game. Giancarlo Stanton knows how to hit. Um, I think that's really about it at this point. He's really DHing and sometimes playing the
Yeah.
outfield. He can't really run. That's okay. He's still a baller, man, and they threw a lot of money at him. So I think there's frustration with that as well because this is not panned out to be what they expected it to be.
Yeah, and people have also you hit the nail on the head. You're right, and also like people have talked about trading Stan before this even happened, but I feel like
Yep.
even now, like this opens the door to even more possibility of him being traded. I think plenty of teams would take that contract, or they would want the Yankees to pay for the majority of it, whatever. Um, and we'll see what happens on that end. That's I feel like maybe this story isn't over. We'll see how Stanton responds, what the Yankees do in the offseason because they haven't really done that much. I mean, getting Rodon was a big deal, sure, but he hasn't panned out just yet. Obviously, it's just 1 year. But Frankie Montas, he was not healthy this year, so you never know. Yankees could still have a successful year in 2024, but they're going to need a lot of stuff to happen. Plus, they're going to need a full year of Aaron Judge because obviously, when you have Aaron Judge for a full season, any team could win 90 games with that guy. So, we'll see what happens. Exactly. Moving on now to the main topic of the week, which has been the awards so far. These awards, of course, are going to be trickling out over the next couple of weeks for the BBWA MLB awards. So they had the managers of the year to open the week, and it was for the AL, Brandon Hyde of the Orioles, and in the National League, they had Skip Schumacher, first year manager for the Marlins. What were your thoughts on those guys? I mean, these are two guys that Brandon Hyde has been there for a minute, but I mean, he's endured 110 lost seasons, and
Yeah,
not, took the Orioles to the first postseason berth in years. I believe it was like 2017 or 2016. So,
yeah,
that was very deserving. And then Skip Schumacher, like I said, his first season there, and he was able to, they went on a 33-14 run, in one, or sorry, they won 33 one-run games against 14 losses in those one-run games. And I think it was impressive just because of the fact that, like, I don't think anybody really expected the Marlins to play as well as they did. They obviously had
yeah.
a great offense. They obviously, with, I think, Jorge Soler declined his options, so he's not going to come back. So that sucks for them. But he was able to kind of get those guys together, and help the Marlins win some big games. But what were your thoughts on those two guys? Is obviously, like I said, two guys that are on two separate sides of the managerial life. One's been there for a while and one's just started. And what this means for the future. Because I mean, the Orioles here to stay. Marlins, you never know. Next year, not because of Skip Schumacher, honestly, but like next year they could be down to down in the AL and the NL East. So what were your thoughts on Manager of the Year awards?
I'm very intrigued by Brandon Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is very deserving, and I think it's cool that the Orioles organization kind of stuck by him even throughout those years where they're
Yeah.
like, hey, this is going to be a long process, but they knew that was their guy. And great for him for really leading this very young, extremely talented ball club uh, with more talent coming next year. It's great. It's great for the Orioles. If I'm an Orioles fan, I'm super excited for the future because they kind of remind me of the Braves a little bit, just with this super young talent that's locked in for a while. Very very cool. We'll see how long because we have the GMs talking about different things here and there in terms of being able to keep guys, but for the foreseeable future, this is very good for Orioles fans, and that's a hell of a year. And they just ran into a hot team during the playoffs that taking away nothing from the Orioles, but they ran into a hot team, and so yeah. And then when it comes to the Marlins, I think that's great as well. That's another young ball club, and while Jazz Chisholm kind of found himself in the later parts of the year, it was cool seeing players like Jesus Sanchez step up
Mm-hmm.
the way he did offensively. Jake Berger going over there and having an
Yep.
immediate impact, and bringing the energy that he did. That's awesome to see this team start to contend. That's great. I don't want anything to feel like an accident with the Marlins, where I feel like sometimes certain years they get to this point not specifically because they're an amazing ball club, but sometimes the circumstances of the season kind of just allows them to kind of slide in there a little bit. So, like I said about the Orioles, I don't want to take this season away from the Marlins. I just want to see another season of them like this and even build more going into 2024. But they do have an extremely tough division when you look at the Phillies and the Braves in there as well. Well deserved by both sides. This is it is not easy being a manager, and I know I couldn't do.
No, yeah, and I think it's just kind of how you said with the Orioles ran into a bust. I mean, so did the Marlins, right, in the playoffs. I mean, they took on the Phillies, and and the Marlins are one of those teams where, like, seeing them in the playoffs, I'm like, man, it's another team that I felt the Cubs could have
Yeah,
easily, been in their place. But at the end of the day, credit to the Marlins. They played great, like I said, in one-run games. They were 33-14, and
yeah,
they won big in September, and that's what you did. That you deserve to be there. So it's just definitely, like you said, you put it well. Like, some years it's like they get there. It's like they have that one year where they get to the playoffs. And we saw it in 2020, they were in the playoffs. Cubs, they
yes,
eliminated the Cubs. So Yeah, it seems like an accident sometimes, but we do know the type of talent they have. You mentioned it with Chisholm. We, they have great pitching. They, hopefully we see Sixto Sanchez sometime soon because we haven't seen him in a minute. Just seeing
We're gonna,
like, Sandy Alcantara, like obviously his season ended early. That could have maybe changed the whole trajectory of the playoffs. Who knows?
yeah,
But guys like that, Jesus Luzardo, they have the talent there. So definitely, hopefully, it's not one of those things that, it's just 1 year thing. Uh,
yeah.
in the rookie of the year, it was pretty like predictable as when it came to that. I will say, Miles, do you remember who you picked for rookie of the year for both leagues, by the way, coming into the year or no?
I do not remember though.
Oh, okay. Because I should have saved everybody's, but I saved my list, and I had Corbin, but I get the ale wrong. But going into the actual awards season, I was like, yeah, it's gonna be Gunnar Henderson, and it was Gunnar Henderson. And in the NL it was Corbin Carroll. So yeah, I mean these, like I said, very predictable. Gunnar Henderson, one of the main reasons the Orioles went into the playoffs, is one of the top seeds in the AL. He had a B WAR of 6.2, F WAR of 4.6, hit 28 bombs, scored 100 runs. So he had a great season. Corbin Carroll, honestly, one of the best players in baseball, like even now, like just even midway through the season, I was saying that like this dude is for real one of the best players in baseball now. Like he runs, he had 54 steals. He had the first 25-50 rookie. He was the first 25-50 rookie in MLB history. And obviously led the D-backs to the World Series. So, he won it unanimously, which is the first time for an NL rookie. So, I mean, that just goes to show how, everyone knows how good of a player he is. And he literally, I mean, he just reminds me of Mike Trout in so many ways, whether it be the speed, whether it be just the leadership, whether it be his
Yeah.
bat, like he's just like almost like a left-handed Mike Trout. And
Mm-hmm.
he plays well above his age and all that, so it's cool to see. And these are two guys that we're gonna see honestly could easily match up in the World Series sometime soon, because the Orioles are a hell of a team, and they're not going anywhere. So like they're gonna be around for a while. What did you think about these AL and NL rookie of the years?
Bro, these are two. Oh my god, they hit with such maturity. It's
Mm-hmm.
really cool to watch. I mean, Gunnar Henderson driving in 82 this year,
Yeah.
and it's great seeing him get these many at bats too. When he had 560 at bats, that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. This kid is 22 years old. And he's just one of a few other rookies on this ball club who are up and coming. Um, and, it, I don't what else I can say about the Orioles in terms of how much they have to be excited about. That's great. That's great. That's a hell of a year from Gunnar Henderson and Corbin Carroll. He just has like this swagger to him in the outfield that I just think is just really cool. And a swing that just covers the strike zone the entire way. So he's so dangerous from the left side. And I like that he's not really phased if he's seeing a left-handed pitcher up there as well. Keeps that same approach, and he's always great with getting barrel the ball. And God, Lee, this kid can run. Um, two great. I'm looking for the word because I don't want to say what's the word I'm looking for. I like where the future of baseball is going with these two players. We got a lot to look forward to. God damn, bro, the Orioles, Jesus Christ. Got Jackson Holiday coming up next year too.
Yep. Well, that's the thing. Like, you look at like what their lineup's going to look like in the future with Jackson Holiday, Gunnar
Dude.
Henderson, Adley Rutschman, and that's not even and not to get into the conversation of like the owners and what the owners have said about not being able to keep these guys for that long, but hopefully, hey, they're able to get a free agent in there, dash in somebody else, or dash in
Yeah.
or somebody in the rotation because they obviously need pitching.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this lineup is going to be nasty for the next few years, and it's only going to get better. And Jackson Holiday is only going to make it better. So yeah, it's scary, honestly. And same with the Diamondbacks. I mean, Corbin Carroll is the start of a new wave. They're going to have plenty of other young players coming up. I mean, Gabriel Moreno is one of the main reasons they were in the World Series as well. So I mean, these young teams are crazy. I mean, Corbin Carroll being 23 is still crazy to me. I mean, he was in there uh during the NL championship celebration when like they were, going crazy. People had Budweisers in their hands and he came out of nowhere with a milkshake. It's just hilarious to me. And how
Yeah,
chill they are and just like, kind of have like been there, done that attitude. And you love to see it with the
yeah,
young guys. Like they're killing it.
yeah,
So and I know Corbin Carroll is a guy, like I said, at being at 23, we're gonna see him for a long time. And he's gonna dominate the game. So good to see.
yeah.
Moving on to the final award of at least up to this point, we're recording this on a Wednesday. The Cy Young in the American League. Garrett Cole wins his first Cy Young, and Blake Snell wins his second. Honestly, with these two, not really surprised at all. In the AL, I'm glad to see a big Garrett Cole guy. Like just every time Garrett Cole's pitching, I love to watch. He's so dominant, whether it be in the playoffs, regular season. In the NL, of course, I probably said this last week, but it doesn't seem like very like it seemed kind of like a weak year for NL Cy Youngs this year. Like even if and out for the record, I would say this even if our boy Steele was in it. Unfortunately, I felt like he was slighted by not being at least top three. I know he shouldn't have won it,
Yeah,
but at least top three would have been nice.
yeah,
I mean, but the guy just it goes to show when the guy like that to prove my point, Blake Snell won and he was one of the league leaders in walks. And I kind of want your opinion on this as you can talk about the awards because regardless of it, 234 Ks, a 31.5 strikeout rate for Snell. And you can talk on Cole as well, just because he's just like I said, he's been dominant for years. We've seen him at the Pirates and what he's done now with the Astros and Yankees. But I kind of want your opinion specifically on that Snell point. Is how do you see it as a baseball player? Because I've seen people talk about, oh, like Blake Snell, he walks too many guys, but hey, they don't score. Or the way I see it personally is you're gonna walking guys is never a good thing, obviously, but when you get into the playoffs, that's gonna come back and bite you. Obviously, we didn't see that with the Padres this year, but people talk about
right.
like, oh, like I don't care if he can walk 200 a year as long as they don't score. And which, to be fair, he didn't let a lot of them score. I saw stats about it and all that. But how do you see it as a player? Like, do you see it as like I don't care how many guys he walks as long as they don't score, or do you prefer a guy not walking guys at all?
I think I definitely prefer guys not walking
Mm-hmm.
hitters, and it's I think each year can vary from the next when it comes to these kind of topics. It's never good to walk a bunch of dudes because more in most cases, obviously aside from this year, Blake Snell was able to escape out of some jams. And even when I saw him pitch at Wrigley earlier this year, I he was walking dudes left and right. And he got shelved. It
Mm-hmm.
came back to bite. I don't think it's something to exactly overlook because you never know who you're going to put on base. And we just talked to one of the guys. Well, now you put someone like Corbin Carroll on base, he may end up
Mm-hmm.
at third base
Yep.
two pitches later. Not a. I don't think. I mean, I guess it's you could look at it this year and be like, okay, well, he got out of a lot of jams. I don't think that's going to age well, especially not where
Mm-hmm.
this game is heading and where it has continued to go in the past 10, 15 years. And not only are we seeing guys get stronger, I don't want us to forget that the MLB also made these bases bigger, and they're trying to encourage guys to steal
Mm-hmm.
more bases, and they're trying to move guys over. I don't think that's going to age well with the game. And I think it was okay this year in a sense where it was, in fact, where he is nasty from the left side, and he does have a very sweeping curveball, and it is hard to make good contact with it. As you age, some of these pitches aren't going to move like they used to, and if you're still walking guys, it's really going to come back to bite you. So I don't think that's something that's not gonna age well in today's game for baseball. And I don't think it's ever been something that has been good for pitchers in the game of baseball. Even if you're a dominant pitcher, you don't want to walk guys. You don't want to walk a lot of guys for many reasons that can go on and on about.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's the way I saw it, and like that's kind of it with the runner ups. They had Logan Webb in there, and Zach Gallen. I'm surprised that Kodai Senga wasn't in the top three either, for the record. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, so, uh, But on the Garrett Cole side, what do you think about Garrett Cole and him winning the award? I mean, this is a guy, like I said, he's finished second multiple times. I feel like he's always been there, but he hasn't been able to finally get the award, and he's got it now at age 33. This is a guy who's on pace to have a Hall of Fame career, man. Like, how do you see Garrett Cole? And like I said, we saw him plenty of times here in Chicago with Pittsburgh. He went over to Houston, and he's gone everywhere. He's everywhere he's gone, I should say, he's dealt. So not
Yeah.
surprised there, right?
Well, yeah, not surprised at all, and very well deserved. I've always loved how much of a dog
Yeah.
Garrett Cole is when he goes out there, not scared of anybody, not afraid to kind of throw around a hitter to make a point if they're trying to throw off his rhythm. I've always admired that about Garrett Cole. And look, this is one of the few bright spots for the New York Yankees, and someone you got to put more pitches around him, and with him and Judge, I'm hoping that they figure out some sort of way to make that team more competitive. Because as much as people don't like it, the game of baseball is better when the Yankees are doing well. Um, you got to continue to put a supporting cast around someone like Garrett Cole, because he's going to continue to go out there and give you everything he's got every single game. He's just a dog out there. So well deserved. I've always been a big Garrett Cole fan, except when he was pitching against the Cubs in 2015.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I always that's the thing. Every time I see Garrett Cole, I always just remember the look of disgust on his face when Schwarber hit that bomb into the Allegheny in the wild card game. So sweet, dude. Like, just I love it. I'm sorry. Even though I'm a big fan of Garrett Cole, like it was awesome seeing the Cubs take down their ace like that, and and
That was great.
it was awesome. But yeah, no, well deserving for these two guys, and
Yeah.
definitely looking forward to the rest of the awards because the big awards coming on Thursday. They're going to unveil the MVP for the NL and the AL. And I'm glad we're going to have Gabe for that next week because that conversation is going to get intense, I feel like, because we have plenty of opinions, and especially in my NL MVP thoughts. So, because there's plenty to talk about with that conversation. So, we'll definitely get into that next time. But I think that's a good place to wrap things up for this edition of the At Bat podcast, presented by War Media. I want to thank Miles Porter for joining me on another week. Of course, make sure you check out all our other War shows when it comes to Slam Society, the Bears Den. We go live with them on StreamYard with our boy Sean Sierra, Joe Tanksley, as well. It's a partnership with Sports Zone Chicago, so love to see that. And just keep checking out all the War stuff, man. Share it up and really appreciate it. For Saul Rodriguez, Miles Porter. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks for watching the At Bet Podcast.